this later. All right. Let's check out
Hi, this is Tony Hawk.
the Wrath of the Lich King interview by Gamereactor. This is like 18 years old. Let's check this out.
For the Games Convention 2007.
You're watching Gamereactor.
Gamereactor
TV.
What was your main objective when you started working on Wrath of the Lich King?
Our main objective was to provide a lot more content for all of our players, as well as new players, by adding new features like our first hero class, the Death Knight. We also wanted to add a new trade skill called Inscription, and a lot of cool other smaller features as well.
I cannot believe it. Like Inscription was the. There was a time when its Inscription was the thing, you know, like it was the. It's gonna like this forgotten kind of. Less important, but like it was kind of like jewelry in TBC, you know. And well, who can forget the Death Knight, huh?
Burning Crusade was released. One of the main controversies amongst certain players, at least, was the step from the raid armors and weapons to the new loot from already in Hellfire Peninsula, and there was a lot of anger at that. And now you're doing it all over again, so to speak. What's your general design philosophy when it comes to adding new levels to the game?
Well, in general, we try to reward players as frequently as possible, and part of that means having to replace older items. There are some issues with outdating people's items too quickly, but at the same time, there's a specific problem that occurs before an expansion comes out, which is everybody worrying about what I'm doing right now in the game possibly won't be relevant later on. We find that the psychology actually changes when people start playing the game. We saw this heavily in beta for Burning Crusade, because we didn't have a huge item upgrade. And the players said, there's no point in playing, I never get anything new. So what we try to do is find a nice balancing point. I think players who were in full Naxxramas gear are a good example. They didn't outdate their weapons and armor until Karazhan, or later than Karazhan for a lot of them. And sort of the newer players who might come into WoW and level up in all greens, they were successful in Hellfire Peninsula, able to actually kill things without us having to tune the creatures to the point where other people can sort of interact with them. So it's a very fine balancing point. We want to make sure that people feel good about their items.
Yeah, back then, the epic and rares were still something that like you didn't like got that easily. So that's why to talk about it this way, it's interesting. Brings me back.
Like they're not getting outdated too soon, but at the same time, we want to make sure that all players, including the hardest of the hardcore, also get item upgrades. I think that's why they're really playing the game, is to kind of get rewarded, and we need to make sure that they get new items.
We asked our readers to come up with a question for you guys, and one of our readers, he wanted to know, you talked a lot about player versus enemy, player versus player, but you haven't talked so much about how you're going to improve role-playing. You talked something about new hairstyles and new moves, dancing. What other plans do you have for the role-playing part of the game?
The big feature for Wrath of the Lich King that we've announced and we've been talking about to improve on the role-playing part of the game is definitely the dance system. It's not just about adding new dance moves, it's actually about letting you customize which dance moves your particular character chooses to do.
This was never implemented.
You might be familiar with a lot of the dances in the game are kind of separate dance moves strung together, and it kind of loops through them randomly. We want to give you a little bit more control over which particular dance moves your character's doing.
Well, at the same time, who cares about dancing in WoW?
The other thing, like you mentioned, are new hairstyles and being able to change the color of your hair as well. We're looking into whether or not we're going to do facial hair, earrings, nose rings, tattoos, that sort of thing as well. So we really want to get you involved with the look and feel of your character.
Wrath of the Lich King, as far as we've heard, will feature Arthas in many ways, and he's the old bad guy from Warcraft 3 and Frozen Throne. aren't you a bit early in introducing him?
I think that's a really good question. A lot of people keep asking, you know, you're coming out with Wrath of the Lich King. Arthas is the bad guy. Aren't we fighting him too soon? What a lot of people have forgotten is that Warcraft is a very old franchise at this point. We've been creating Warcraft lore for a
This
long
is true.
time, starting back with Warcraft 1, the original RTS, where it all started. Arthas only came into existence a few years ago in Warcraft 3. He was brand new. He never existed before Warcraft 3, and he was sort of a new thing that we implemented. And we did him in such a way where we made him feel epic and huge, and he became a defining character to the game. So I think it's our responsibility as developers to not only create cool characters, but create a cool world. And I feel like that world can't revolve around one singular person, one singular entity. So we want to constantly come up and develop the next Arthas. Who's that going to be? So we've got a lot of plans, and we're not going to knock Arthas off too soon. We're going to let players have a lot of fun with Arthas first, and he'll probably end up dying in maybe a content patch like Illidan did with Black Temple. That's kind of our plan right now.
Will there be any new mid-level content?
There's definitely going to be new mid-level content, and players aren't going to have to wait for Wrath of the Lich King to play it. Coming up very soon is our Zulaman patch. As part of that patch, we've revamped the zone of Dustwallow Marsh, adding completely new quests to the zone. We always felt like Dustwallow was a very cool place, but it didn't have enough quests and stories to really support all the grand things going on. Like
Zulaman is really like in between. You either hate it or love it. Like it was so reused, like with the Amani,
you know, the Shady Rest Inn, Theramore, you know, Onyxia's there, the Black Dragonflight. We also felt like there weren't enough quests to really support it as a zone worth going to. So in patch 2.3, which is the one with Zulaman in it, we're going to feature a Dustwallow Marsh revamp with all new, brand new quests. Some of them are very cool too, like you get to shoot cannons at a giant sea monster as one of the quests. So I think players will find that very new, and that's definitely mid-level. Now, other changes coming to the mid-level game, it's not brand new content, but it's a change we're talking about. We've gone back to a lot of zones like Arathi Highlands and Alterac Mountains and taken all of the elite quests and made them non-elite. We feel like at this point in the game, with the flow of players heading to Outland and eventually Northrend, we needed to ease up on some of that content. So all of those Stromgarde quests where players would get hung up on in Arathi Highlands will now be non-elite.
yeah, and especially because like at this point, people were not like playing in these zones anymore. So good call of them.
And then we're also doing an in-depth
From 18 years ago.
analysis of our leveling curve, specifically between levels 20 and 60, to ease it up a little bit. And what we'll probably do is require less EXP per level, in addition to giving more quest reward EXP and more dungeon reward EXP.
Yes, a personal question. Can you tell us about your character in World of Warcraft and where you're at right now?
I have
Oh, this is interesting, actually.
a bunch of characters in World of Warcraft. I've actually leveled up on both sides, Horde and Alliance, and I've leveled up multiple different classes, but I find that as one of the lead designers on the game, it's usually better off if I don't mention exactly who my characters are or which classes I'm playing.
Good call, actually. Really good call on him.
But I assure you I'm playing your class.
I thought I'd try to mention the Death Knight as well, because that's one of the big features. Because you really managed to scare the warriors and the rogues at the same time by saying he can tank and DPS. Can you tell us a little bit more how that's going to work, especially compared to the other classes?
The Death Knight will definitely fill the role of tank and DPS. Now, how exactly the mechanics are going to work, still a little bit to be determined on that. The class is in development presently. It's not completely finished, and we plan to iterate heavily in the beta on how it's going to work. Now, in reference to how it tanks, it will tank differently from a warrior in that it won't need a shield. It will use a two-handed weapon or dual wield and use some of its vampiric abilities to sort of make it a viable tank. One of the exciting things about the Death Knight is that it uses a new resource system called the Rune system. unlike Energy or Rage, it sort of uses this rune system where it customizes what abilities it uses. But the exact mechanics and how it will compete with, let's say, a Fury or Arms Warrior, or obviously the Rogue's DPS, those are very touchy subjects, and we want to make sure to fully explore his mechanics to make sure that DPS warriors are still viable. And of course, we want rogues to be our top melee DPS. That's always been our vision, and we'll try to stick with that.
Will there be gnome Death Knights?
I'm very happy and pleased to announce that there will be gnome Death Knights. Currently, our plans are that all classes can, or excuse me, all races will be able to be a Death Knight. Now, something weird might happen in development or as we get into beta, which might change that, but I don't foresee that.
And it
true
was never
goal is to make the
changed.
Death Knight available to all races, and it really fits the story too.
This was like not a lot much to say, but like this was like interesting to just like kind of like rewatch this bubble, you know, like just kind of like get into this nostalgia.